Well, good morning. Good morning. Yeah. Yeah, there does need to be like a little bit of stirring going on. All right. Let's try one more time. Good morning.
Good morning.
Ooh, that feels good. I needed that, thanks. So this month, we're exploring realizing the power of mind. As I've talked to you this year, we have been exploring with other centers for spiritual living this idea of creating a world that works for all. And there's so many ways to create a world that works for all, and it's kind of a big concept. So we're trying to break it down a little bit simpler so that each one of us can take that on personally and use it in our own lives, making it tangible. Because whenever I say God is infinite and it is the creator of all things, it is in everything through everybody. There's no place where God is not. It's kind of a big concept, don't you think? Yeah. I mean, I used to think that God was that outer thing, like it had to be outside of me. It's something I had to pray to. I had to pray to that thing. And if I was good, like Santa Claus would be like, oh, I'm checking your list, you've been naughty or nice, and then if you've been nice, then I'm answering your prayers. That's kind of how I had that concept of God. But now I recognize that the concept of God that I have is an indwelling presence. It's something within me, and it's within each and every person here. It's not something I'm going out there for, it's something I'm going in here for. And that's where I can tap in and tune into that greater realization, that power, that presence that's all around. You see, we believe that God is personal to all who feel this indwelling presence. On one hand, we teach that God operates through spiritual laws, and we teach the spiritual laws here. And we talk about the spiritual laws being impersonal, like you plant a seed, and whoever you are, if you're planting the seed, then it grows. It doesn't matter if you're a murderer or if you're a child. It doesn't matter. The seed will grow to somebody who plants and waters it. That's one way that we describe God. But then the other way we describe God is the indwelling presence that's personal to each and every individual. So it's kind of a paradox, an oxymoron. It's both and wrapping our minds around that is the challenge that I have to give to you, is to step into that idea that it's also very personal. It's intimate. It's closer to you than your breathing, than your hands or your feet. It's so close inside. And we teach that happiness is being in right relationship to that indwelling presence. The life that is worthwhile flows from the enthusiasm that springs from the center of one's being. And that means that enthusiasm, I don't know if you know the Latin root of enthusiasm, it's in theos, which is with God, in God. So whenever you have enthusiasm, that means you're connecting to that God source within you, and you're expressing that light that you have. And that's enthusiasm. So think about the things that you have enthusiasm for. What gives you enthusiastic, results, or where do you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that I'm doing this? That's when you're connecting in to that God source, that enthusiasm. I was watching City Slickers the other day, and I don't know if you guys remember this, but it had Curly and Mitch, and they're, cowboys, they're on horses, and Curly says, do you know what the secret to life is? And Mitch says, no, what? And Curly says, this. And Mitch says, your finger? And Curly says, one thing, just one thing. You stick to that and everything else don't mean expletive. Everything else don't mean anything. Mitch says, that's great, but what is the one thing? And Curly says, that's what you have to figure out. So this month we're exploring our book of the month, The One Thing. Ta-da! And this is an amazing book. This has been a #1 Wall Street Journal bestseller for a really long time. It's also the #1 business book of all time. On Amazon, it's #1. We're selling it here today for only $20. It's $24.95 on the back cover. So I have 4 of them, and I'll have more next week if you want to purchase it. But the book says, what's the one thing you can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? What's the one thing you can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? And I think for me, I like to focus on happiness. I like to focus on what brings me happiness. And I recognize that happiness springs out of enthusiasm. And if enthusiasm springs out of my connection with the divine, then what is the one thing that I need to focus on but my connection to the divine? We have a need for happiness. It's psychological. Imagine your mind without happiness. It's pretty morbid, huh? It's also physiological. The happiness that we have affects our body. And so figuring out what makes your mind happy or what makes your body happy. What are the things that you do such that your mind is inspired? It's filled with joy. It's filled with ideas. It's filled with newness and renewal. And what are the things that you do that makes your body feel that way? Your body feels alive, renewed. And tapping in and tuning into that. Ernest Holmes says, it's mathematically certain that we cannot contract the infinite, but we can expand the finite. We must do something definite to ensure the intellect and the emotions that there's nothing in the universe to be afraid of. So how does that work for me? It's again, I'm talking about the infinite, right? So you can't put a boundary on the infinite. There is no boundary. We are part of the infinite. However, we have a finite body and a finite mind. So we're moving, breathing in the infinite. It's as if, there's like a cell in your body that's hanging out. Really important. All my cells, very important. But the cell might have a purpose. Like it might be a cell for my heart, or it might be a cell for my brain. It might be a cell for a different part of my body. Now, each cell in my body is important, and I need it all for it to work and operate. Well, that's kind of how we are in God's body. We have this unique individualized expression, and we each have a purpose that we get to declare for ourselves, for our lives, and then the energy and the vibration of the divine moves through us to help create what our purpose is in life. So we get to determine that. And we also get to expand ourselves in this finite presence. So our job is expansion. We expand our consciousness, we expand our lives, we continually expand. I'm doing Prosperity Plus right now, and it's with Mary Morrissey, and she does these videos every week, and then we have a discussion about them. And she talks about how we're on an evolutionary spiral, an upward spiral. It's not a downward spiral, it's an upward spiral. So each thing that we do in our life connects and expands to the next thing that is the bigger, better thing, right? And sometimes the spiral seems like it's not going up, but it's just kind of going around the revolution in order for it to catapult you to the next thing. And sometimes it's the job that's not working for you, or sometimes it's a relationship that's not working for you. What are the things that are not working that give you the clue of where you want it to be working? It's kind of like, what she says? She says that we get pushed towards our dreams and desires by the things that are not working. Does that make sense? So all the things that you're struggling with and your challenge, it's pushing you to that next level. I used to have a job that I was really unhappy with as well. And I got written up in my job. I was working at the Stanford Faculty Club, and my partner at the time, she broke up with me, and we were engaged to be married. It was very dramatic at the time for me, and I was in this really big state, this depressive state. And because I was in a depressive state and I was a receptionist, I was not the best receptionist. And my ex called me up one time and I answered the phone and I just broke down. I lost it. And I said to the office manager, I said, I have to go. I need to just go take a breather. And whenever I went and took a breather, then the big boss came in, noticed I wasn't there, and I got written up. And I was really upset because I had just lost my partner and I was in this very deep state of depression. And I was seeking something greater. I wanted to be acknowledged for who I was. I knew I had gifts. I knew I had things to share in the world, but I also felt really upset. And so I was dreaming. I was doing this work. I was doing spiritual mind treatments, and I was dreaming about this ideal job. And I wanted to, at that time, I really wanted to work for the university. I was working for a catering company at the faculty club. And I really wanted to work for the university. So the same day I get written up, this gentleman walks into the faculty club, and he had interviewed me for a job a couple years earlier. He walks into the faculty club and he goes, Abigail, oh my God, I'm so grateful to see you here. I'd like to offer you a job. And it was the same day. I'm like, what is going on? So it was the one thing pushing me out, and the other thing was pulling me towards. And so I got this, within a week, I got a new job. I was getting paid twice as much as I was getting paid, and I got full benefits. And I was working for Stanford University, which was my dream. And I ended up working for Stanford for 11 years. So whatever that thing is in you, that spark, that enthusiasm, I encourage you to look at what it is and feed that fire and recognize, oh, look, this thing is falling apart. That's falling apart so this thing can fall together. You know, spiritually, happiness has always been an inside job. And sometimes we talk about success. So what do you think success is? What is success? Anybody? Freedom. Sure. Happy? Fulfilling a dream? Yeah. Achieving goals. Connection. Yeah. Satisfaction. It was really interesting. I saw 2 weeks ago when I went to Salt Lake City, I saw a speaker, and his focus was on this book, The One Thing. And he asked us that very question. And what I love that he said that success is getting what you want. Success is getting what you want. And a couple months ago, we were exploring the book, The Art of Possibility. And it went and took success to the next level. And it said, instead of focusing on success, focus on how will I be a contribution? What can I contribute here that will make me happy? So again, success is getting what you want. Well, one thing is what are you going to give in order to receive what you want? Part of circulation is giving. We have to give what we have in order to receive what we want. I know it seems counterintuitive. It's not what society teaches us at all. Society says you have to get and then you give. But really, you give first and then you get. So what can I give? What can I give? And what are my priorities in what I'm giving? That's the big thing that I love about this book, is really figuring out what your priorities are. My wife was telling me about somebody who said to her, you know, if you have somebody in your life and you say, oh, I don't have time for you, or I don't have time in my schedule, the question is, can you say to them, you are not a priority to me? And the answer is maybe yes, or maybe no. If you say, my family is my priority, and yet nowhere in your schedule is family time, then the question is it really your priority? What are your priorities? What's the one thing that you can make a priority in your life that makes an impact over everything else? In the book, there's a wife the wife of the author, told this story to him. She had a friend, and her friend's mother was a school teacher, and the father was a farmer. And they had scrimped and saved and then done with less their entire lives. They really wanted to save all this money for their retirement and their travel. And the woman, she remembered going shopping trips with her mother, that she'd go to the local fabric store and the mom would buy all of these fabrics for her traveling clothes. And she was so excited about retiring. And in her last year of teaching, she got cancer and she died. And the friend remembered that whenever her father passed away, she recognized that in the closet was all of these fabrics, these retirement clothes. He never went anywhere after she died because he felt like it was their money and he didn't want to waste their money, and she wasn't there to be with him. I think a lot of us in our lives, me for instance, I hear things like that and it reminds me that life is really worth living. Life isn't to do tomorrow, life is to do today. So it's good to plan and build and imagine and create things for your future. And it's also good to live the life that you have right now in a way that expands your joy, that brings you happiness. So I know, for me, that I've been jumping on opportunities that I had. Like last year, I had an opportunity to go to Bali. And I jumped on that opportunity because it was I got an $800 discount. And I thought, when am I ever going to go to Bali? You know, like what a great opportunity. And I had enough money in savings, so I just did it. And that trip changed and transformed my life. It opened me up to a greater sense of connection and made me realize that here in America we have so much. And in Bali, they worship everything. They worship everything. Every day they have all of the people, they go out, they have a ritual, and they make little offerings. And they place offerings 3 times a day all around. I mean, there'll be offerings in the middle of the street, in the storefronts, wherever you go, there's offerings, and there are flower petals and fruits and things of beauty. And they do that every day. Can you imagine a whole country, a whole group of people at the same time waking up, saying gratitudes and making offerings to the gods of appreciation? They appreciate in advance what's going on. So if you were to wake up and appreciate in advance for the day that was going to happen and make an offering to the divine of your own beingness, what would it look like? How would it be? It really made me think about how I'm doing things in life. Am I doing things because I'm doing them for the achievement, or am I doing them because of my spiritual realization of my expansion? Sometimes I recognize that I think our society makes us go through hoops and jump through things in order to prove ourselves. Sometimes religious organizations, like you have to do this and do this to prove your worthiness, or school systems, you have to pass this test and do this thing in order to prove your worthiness. You have to have the degree in order to be okay. But what if you already had what you needed? What if everything you were seeking was already inside of you? What if that expanded and expressed itself in everything that you did and everybody you talked to? Anybody following politics? There's a lot of interesting things going on in politics right now. What would it be like if each politician focused on happiness and harmony for the world? How would it be different? And try this on for size. What if you were a politician? What would you dream up? What would you create? What would you spout to people in order to create an idea for a new world? What would you say to people that would be an inspiration to them? What would you say in order to get people's vote? It's easy for us to talk about and complain about what politicians are doing out there, right? But what are you doing in here that you're speaking and living through in your life? Dr. Ernest Holmes in Living the Science of Mind says, "Spirit is at the center of each and every one of us. To it we may come for guidance, and from it we may draw both inspiration and the power to live, stand, walk, or sit." And from the Upanishads we read, "The silent one, the knower, ever resting in us, may walk, stand, sit, lie down, and do anything at his sweet will." So there's 3 things I want you to know. One is your priorities. The domino effect. This is also in the book. In 1983, Lorne Whitehead wrote in the American Journal of Physics that he discovered that domino falls could not only topple many things, they could also topple bigger things. A single domino is capable of bringing down another domino that's actually 50% larger. You see, when you have the one thing, the right thing is set in motion, it can topple many things. So you have a domino this big, it can topple a domino 50% larger, and that one 50% larger, 50% larger. Do you get? So whenever you start focusing on the one thing in your life, and I want to encourage you to focus on what that spiritual thing is, what is the one thing you can do for your spiritual life that causes you to feel that enthusiasm, to tap it and tune into it? Because once you start that domino, once you get that going, it clears the way for so many other things in your life to come into being. So find what your one thing is. What are your priorities? Number 2, share your gifts. They're already inside you. What can you contribute in order to have this world be a better place? And my 3rd point is to dream big. A kindergarten teacher was observing her classroom of children while they were drawing. And she'd walk around, she'd see each child draw their artwork. And as she got to one little girl who was working diligently, she asked, "What is this drawing?" And the girl said, "I'm drawing God." And the teacher said, "But no one knows what God looks like." And the little girl says, "Well, they will in a minute." See, if we could think like a child and recognize everything we have is within us, we're the ones that are defining and determining where we can go and how far we can be, how great we can be in this world. We're the ones that are determining what our limits are, what our boundaries are. And we're also the ones who can create that unlimitedness and tap into that indwelling presence and find out where is our greatest source. Our greatest resource is within. It is the source, the one source, and it's within. So I encourage you to seek within to find your resource and find out what your priorities are and find out what your one thing is. And I know that this world is changing, is shifting, is opening, is emerging, is evolving because you're doing that today. So thank you. So it is.